A couple months ago, I took a look at the Mackie Thump 215 XT and I gave some of my initial impressions, took it out on a couple of gigs, but now I've had a little more time to dig into some of the more specific features about this speaker, and today I plan to not only take a look at those features, but also compare it to a couple of its past counterparts. Welcome to the DJs Guru, folks. My name is DJ Switch. I'm a contributor here, and between the digital features that are available on this speaker, as well as the output of their brand new amplifier, I'm going to show you why this is the budget speaker on the market to beat right now. Earlier this year, Mackie released their brand new Thump 212, 215, 212 XT, and 215 XT. For this video today, I'm going to be reviewing specifically the 215 XT, which is the version that has a bunch of added digital features so that I can compare it to my Thump 12 BSTs that I purchased last year. The previous generation of Thumps compared to this new one, there's a lot of similarities that I really appreciate, but this 215 XT has quite the feature list, starting with a 15-inch high-performance woofer, 1-inch compression driver for the high-end, wireless streaming and control, which we will get into a little bit later. Also, application-specific voicing modes, plus indoor and outdoor modes. It has a feedback eliminator, music ducking, a standard pole mount, / monitor wedge / M10 fly points, all of which can be very useful depending on your application. And last but not least, it has a 1400-watt ultra-efficient Class D amplifier, and it's built like a tank to conquer every gig while lightweight for easy loading. Now, full disclosure, I did pull that list of features directly off of the website, but in my experience over the last few months of testing and playing out on gigs, every single one of those features lives up to the hype, and I'm going to show you some of my favorites today during this review, after which we're going to compare how some of those features stack up to last year's model, which has many of the same features. Taking a look at the back of this Thump 215 XT, you'll see several of the features are just a simple button push away. Unlike last year's model, which featured a screen and a click knob that you could use to navigate through different menus for the different settings, this year's design goes for a more simplified and straightforward approach. You see voicing modes, which we'll circle back to in a second. You have outdoor mode, you have music ducking, a feedback eliminator, and you can even turn on and off the front LED. Moving further down in the control setup, you have knobs to control level for channel 1, channel 2, and your main output, all independent from each other. Your channel 1 input can be switchable between mic or line. Channel 2 has a similar combo jack to channel 1, but is line only. So usually that would be for an instrument or, say, an input device that's high impedance. But channel 2 also has an 1/8-inch auxiliary input if you want to plug in any kind of a music player, laptop, or DJ system and run it in stereo. Last but not least, we see a male XLR jack for passing through any stereo output to another speaker. You can run these in a stereo pair with wired, but if you take a look at channel 2, you have Bluetooth pairing and a link button, and those are similar but definitely separate. The pair button for Bluetooth allows you to connect a Bluetooth device like a mobile phone or a tablet so that you can play music off of that device in stereo and transmit it directly to the speaker wirelessly. It works extremely well, much like last year's model. I have had no problems whatsoever with the Bluetooth connecting. The link button, on the other hand, allows you to connect to another speaker wirelessly. So you can actually link two of these speakers together in a wireless pair. And when you link them together in a wireless pair, they will run stereo. So once again, if you run, say, a wireless connection over Bluetooth, or if you run an auxiliary input in stereo to the left speaker or to your primary speaker becomes your left speaker. The speaker that it's linked to becomes the right speaker. And then you have a stereo pair wirelessly connected to each other. All you have to do is plug in power. Now, I mentioned the different voicing modes that we were going to circle back to. You have music, live, club, or monitor, and those voicing modes are shown on a small, simple graph just below the branding on the backside of the speaker. So you see the Thump 215 XT logo right below the Mackie logo, and below that, you see the graphs that show what the different voicing mode outputs will look like if you were to graph them out on an equalizer. Below that, we have a single power switch, and we have an IEC connection to plug in power, which you would expect from pretty much any powered speaker at this level. Now, for the sake of comparison, in addition to the Thump 215 XT that was released this year, I've also pulled out the speakers that I purchased last year, which were the Thump 12 BSTs, which you can see here. I have front and back, and we're going to compare the two, talk about how the features are similar and some of the things about them that are a little bit different. And then just for fun, I also pulled out the very first Mackie that I ever owned, which was the Thump TH15A. If I recall correctly, I believe this was the first speaker in the Thump line. And spoiler alert, it's terrible. I don't know why I still have it, other than it definitely came in handy in a pinch if I needed a PA speaker quickly for something. But I can tell you that this speaker is at least a decade old and definitely not up with some of the modern features that the more recent Thump speakers have been able to deliver in terms of power, in terms of features, in terms of usability, in terms of just freaking sounding good. This original Thump TH15A really shows just how far the Mackie Thump line has come and why these new Thumps are nothing like the OGs. Now, for the purposes of trying to create an environment where we could do an even comparison, I set all three speakers up on the desk directly behind me, and I shot photos from a tripod, and I made sure that the tripod was in the exact same position with the exact same lens and focal length. So all of these photos will give you a very realistic idea of how they compare to each other in terms of size and in terms of just sheer bulkiness. What surprised me was just how efficient their use of space was on the 215. You can see the 215 is bigger here compared to the 12 BST, but what surprised me was it's not that much bigger. Moving around to the back of the speaker, I can tell you right away that the 12 BST had basically all of the same features as the 215 XT in terms of the digital stuff that they built into these speakers. The music ducking, the feedback elimination, the wireless Bluetooth pairing, even the wireless link that they've built in. It's a very similar system, if not almost identical, between both speakers. The big thing that I noticed, and honestly, this is my only complaint about the 215 XT, is that they got rid of the screen in favor of a simpler push button interface. It probably was less expensive to produce it that way. I'm not going to fault Mackie for that. But at the same time, I'm a massive tech nerd. And so maybe this is just me. Maybe other DJs wouldn't necessarily agree with my opinion on this, but I miss the screen. I love the screen. I like having menus and functions to go digging through. And I enjoy that part of my interaction with my older Thumps. And so these newer Thumps not having the screen, that was honestly the one sort of downside for me. I appreciate all of the other advancements that they made and how this newer speaker is just a natural progression forward from the previous generation in almost every single way, except I miss the screen. Almost every Mackie speaker in a line above this has a screen. The SRM, the DRM, all of them have screens. The only two Mackies in the Mackie lineup right now that don't are the Thrash series and the Thump series. That's a little bit disappointing, but I get it. And I'm glad that even though we had to give up the screen, we didn't have to give up any of the features. Speaking of not giving up any of the features, they both have wireless app control, but there's a newer app for this new generation of Thumps compared to the originals. The originals used the first generation of the Mackie Thump Connect app, which you can still get on the App Store on Google or iOS. But the new Thump 215 XTs actually use the Thump Connect 2 app, the brand new version of the app, which functionally looks very similar to the original. But I can tell you right away that the Thump Connect 2 app, I had a much easier time connecting to the speaker and getting control of it more quickly than the original. I'm not sure what kind of back-end work they did between the two apps or why they couldn't use the original app with the new speakers. There must be some sort of technical reason for that. Knowing what I know about computers and about app development, I'm sure that there's a reason why there's two different apps instead of just a new update on the original app. But what I can definitely tell you is that the new Thump Connect 2 app works much faster and much more reliably than the original. The original, I did have a couple of issues being able to connect to the 12 BSTs. Eventually you can get it if you fiddle with it a bit, but this new Thump Connect 2 app connects every single time, and I never have a problem with it. I'm going to show you a little bit about how that works towards the end of this video, but for now, let's keep going with the comparison. Now, I talked about the 215 XT compared to the Thump 12 BST from last year, but how does it compare to the TH15A, the OG Mackie Thump speaker that I happen to have sitting around in my garage? Well, the Thump 215 XT that came out earlier this year has 1400 watts of ultra efficient Class D amplifier power. It has feedback elimination, it has music ducking, it has wireless app control, and the Thump TH15A has a power button. Emotional, damn it. Okay, joking aside, there is actually one thing about the TH15A that I really dig that the 215 XT doesn't have. If you take a closer look at this 3-band EQ, I know it's very, very simple, but do you see that second knob, the one that's a different color? That is called a British EQ or a sweeping EQ, and that allows you to actually tune where that mid is going to hit on the frequency band. Whereas with the Thump 215 XT, although it's amazing to have app control, the EQ is just a bit more limited in that regard. That being said, it's not as big of a deal because frankly, the 215 XTs just sound so much better and so much truer that having that level of control over an EQ is not that big of a deal. And really, if you need that level of EQ, you're going to be plugging it into a soundboard anyway, and the soundboard is going to have all those EQ controls. So having that level of EQ control built right onto the back of the speaker isn't really always going to be that necessary. I can understand why they made that decision a long time ago and why they've stuck with it with these brand new Thumps as well. Look, at the end of the day, Mackie has been in the professional sound game for a very long time, and they know what the market is looking for. In my case, I was looking for a budget pair of speakers that could perform decently enough to be able to get me through some of the smaller gigs, because I know that a lot of my bigger gigs, I'm going to be patching into a different sound system or calling in some favors or calling in some vendors to be able to provide something bigger. So a pair of 15s, even added to my pair of 12s if I need 4 speakers for something, honestly, that's as much sound as I ever really need to carry, because anything bigger than that, and I'm going to be bringing in another vendor for some of the shows that I do. Now, your situation may vary, but if you're looking for a budget speaker that's the right price and can perform well above its weight class, the Mackie Thump 215 and 212 XTs are definitely the way to go. When I was looking for a speaker system last year to be able to add to my arsenal, I was drawn to the Thump 12 BSTs because I wanted a 12-inch speaker that was going to be relatively small and easy to pack around, but also had all of the digital features like wireless linking and Bluetooth and feedback and all that stuff. That's why when they sent me the 215 XTs to review, I definitely wanted to take a look at those digital features, because that's what really sets these apart from just a standard ordinary speaker. If you want to pick up a pair of Thump speakers to add to your arsenal just like mine, you can do so by clicking the link down in the description below. Of course, here at the DJs Guru, we love to answer your questions, so please leave a comment below if you have any questions about the Thumps. We'd be more than happy to address them as much as we possibly can. With that in mind, thank you so much for watching this video. We appreciate you. Don't forget to check out the DJsGuru.com. Don't forget to subscribe here to the YouTube channel for more tips, tricks, and content about DJing equipment and the DJ game. We've got a lot of stuff planned for 2023, so we hope y'all will stick around and join us for more tutorials and information coming up in the near future. That being said, my name is DJ Switch with the DJsGuru.com, and I'll see you next time.